February 10, 1951, Gander Airport, Newfoundland. Bitter winds swept over the desolate runways, their chilling whistle piercing the frozen night. In the control tower, eyes widened with confusion as the radar screen flickered erratically, displaying an impossible anomaly. An unidentified craft moving at speeds far beyond any known aircraft. Outside, airmen strained their eyes upward into the dark Canadian sky, hearts racing as they caught sight of something utterly inexplicable. An object, radiating a strange, luminous glow, silently maneuvering with precision no human pilot could achieve. How could multiple experienced observers, both in the tower and on the ground, witness something so extraordinary, yet entirely unexplainable? Fear and disbelief spread quickly among the personnel, tension thickening the already icy air. These were trained professionals, yet tonight, faced with evidence of something impossible, their sense of security shattered. To understand precisely what unfolded that night, we must return to the exact moment when reality itself seemed to fracture above Newfoundland's frozen runways. Long before it became known for radar anomalies and UFO whispers, Gander was a lifeline, carved into the wilderness, a vital aviation crossroads in the post-war world. Nestled in the harsh, wind-scoured heart of Newfoundland, this remote airport town pulsed with the rhythm of propellers and radio chatter, its icy runways serving as a final checkpoint before flights vanished into the Atlantic void. The town's identity was inseparable from its skies. With Cold War tensions quietly mounting, Gander had become a key transatlantic refueling hub, welcoming both military transports and commercial liners. Day and night, men in uniform moved briskly between hangars, terminals, and control rooms, watchful, efficient, and used to routine. Life was demanding but predictable. Mechanics worked through the bitter cold with numb fingers and frostbitten resolve. Air traffic controllers, many of them young men barely out of training, learned quickly to trust their equipment and their instincts. Among them was Flight Lieutenant William Bain, a calm, disciplined RAF officer stationed at Gander through a joint British-Canadian air traffic exchange. He was respected for his steady hand and cool demeanor under pressure. Also present that night, radar technician Sergeant Jack Robertson, known for his attention to detail and war-born pragmatism. These weren't men prone to exaggeration. They lived and breathed precision, operating in a world where errors could be fatal. But in the days leading up to the event, something began to unsettle the familiar rhythm. Several personnel quietly reported interference on the radar, minor at first, then increasingly erratic. Strange blips would appear and vanish with no known aircraft in the area. One mechanic swore he'd seen an object high in the night sky that didn't follow any known flight path, but he was met with shrugs. After all, Gander had seen everything, or so they thought. There was no sense of dread yet, only the creeping unease of professionals who knew their instruments too well to ignore the inconsistencies. They double-checked frequencies, recalibrated screens, blamed it on weather anomalies. But deep down, some began to suspect that what they were witnessing couldn't be explained with checklists or training manuals. And then came the night when the anomaly no longer flickered, when it locked onto their radar screens and refused to behave like anything they'd ever encountered. That's when Gander's sky stopped being routine and became a question no one could answer. It began with a flicker, barely a blip on the scope. In the radar room of Gander Airport, the atmosphere was routine, almost dull. Technicians swapped quiet comments about weather fronts and incoming flights. Then, without warning, the anomaly reappeared. A bright, fast-moving target had returned to the radar screen, erratic, shifting direction at angles no aircraft could survive. At first, they thought it was a glitch, but the blip didn't fade. It maneuvered. Sergeant Jack Robertson, seated at the radar console, leaned in. "It's back," he muttered, voice tight. "Same heading, still no transponder." Across the tarmac, a group of airmen performing maintenance work glanced skyward, alerted by a strange hum that seemed to roll across the frosty night air without a clear source. One of them, leading aircraftman Dennis Moore, would later describe it as a vibration. More than a sound, like something alive passing over your skin. Then came the visual confirmation. From the tower's observation deck, Flight Letier's William Bain spotted it. An object hovering at a distance just beyond the airfield perimeter. Not a star, not a plane. It held position, glowing faintly white-blue, brighter than any aircraft light. Then, with a speed impossible to track visually, it darted across the horizon and stopped again, completely still. Controllers attempted radio contact. Nothing. They scrambled to verify with nearby stations. No scheduled flights in the vicinity, no military exercises, no visual or radar confirmation from any neighboring bases. And yet, the object was there, visible to the naked eye, painting clean onto the radar scope. Witnesses on the ground saw it split into two smaller orbs, both of which shot off at 90-degree angles before re-merging in midair. It was like watching physics lose its mind, one technician said. No craft we knew could move like that and remain intact. Bain recorded everything in his logbook. No attempt was made to scramble aircraft. The speeds involved rendered interception pointless, and maybe dangerous. The object pulsed once, more, brighter than before, casting eerie shadows across the runway. Then, in a blink, it ascended vertically at what several described as untrackable acceleration and vanished from both sight and screen. Silence fell. No alarms, no explosions, just stunned men staring at instruments that had no explanations to offer. Some were shaken. Others were oddly quiet, as if processing what they had seen meant rewriting something internal, something foundational. Because this wasn't a story passed around in bars. These were trained professionals, working under strict protocols, confronted by something utterly unaccounted for. And though the phenomenon was gone, the real turbulence was only beginning. What followed in the hours, days, and years to come would raise even more difficult questions, not just about what they saw, but why no one wanted to talk about it afterward. In the hours that followed the incident, Gander's control tower logs were locked, and a quiet but unmistakable shift in tone gripped the airport. Officially, there was no panic, just a calm reinforcement of protocol. Yet off the record, several personnel would later describe a strange unease in the air, a tacit agreement not to push too hard on what they'd seen. No public statements were issued. No press releases. Internally, however, the incident was escalated. The radar logs were reportedly reviewed by both Canadian and American military authorities. Some staff recalled being asked to forget what they saw. Others were quietly transferred in the weeks that followed, and then there was the evidence, or rather the lack of it. No physical traces were found on the airfield, no signs of damage, no scorch marks, no debris. But the radar recordings remained. They showed a solid, fast-moving target executing maneuvers that were considered impossible by 1951 standards. Several operators signed statements confirming what they'd tracked. Flight Letiem Bain's handwritten log noted, "Unidentified object observed visually and on radar. Movement erratic, speed far exceeds known capabilities." But that log, like many internal communications from the time, was never made public. Some believe it disappeared into classified archives soon after. Eyewitness accounts were largely consistent. A glowing object hovering in silence, capable of near-instant acceleration and abrupt directional shifts. Yet subtle contradictions remained. One technician insisted it split into two spheres. Another swore it blinked out of sight, then reappeared miles away, almost instantly. Were these different perspectives of the same event, or did multiple phenomena occur simultaneously? Outside the base, rumors began to spread. Some townspeople heard second-hand accounts through family members stationed at Gander. A few believed it was a secret military test, Others whispered of visitors from beyond Earth. Still, skeptics pointed to simpler explanations: radar malfunctions, atmospheric refraction, or high-altitude weather balloons. Respected aeronautics. Engineer Dr. Ronald Keating later reviewed a declassified version of the radar data. His conclusion? No known aircraft past or present could perform what was recorded that night. Either the data is flawed, or we're missing something significant. Noted UFO researcher Stanton Friedman also commented on the case decades later, stating, "Gander's 1951 event fits a familiar pattern: trained personnel, verified radar returns, visual confirmation, and official silence." These aren't isolated incidents, they're part of a much larger tapestry. Yet the official story, if there ever was one, remained incomplete. No confirmation, no denial. Just a string of anomalies quietly shelved, and that silence, deliberate or circumstantial, is what keeps the Gander incident alive. Because despite radar prints, trained witnesses, and whispered warnings, no one ever explained what moved across that sky. And no one ever truly tried to. Now, all that remains are questions, and the memories of those who still recall what they saw, even when they were told not to speak of it. In the final chapter, we examine the lasting legacy of that frigid night, and why some believe Gander was only the beginning. Even now, decades later, the questions linger. An object tracked on radar, seen by multiple trained professionals, moving in ways no aircraft should. And then, nothing. No official report, no explanation, no acknowledgement beyond sealed logs and quietly transferred personnel. What exactly crossed those skies? Was it a glimpse of advanced technology, ours or someone else's? A misinterpreted atmospheric anomaly? Or something no current science can yet explain? For those who were there, the moment never faded. Some carried on, saying little. Others left the service altogether, unable to reconcile what they witnessed with the silence that followed. In the small town surrounding the airport, it's still spoken of in quiet tones. Just another mystery tucked into the harsh cold of that winter. And perhaps that's where it will remain. Not buried, just unanswered. Because the truth, if there ever was one, remains locked somewhere between those glowing skies and the radar that dared to record them. What do you believe happened that night? Let me know your thoughts below. And as always, stay curious. Was the object seen over? Gander a glimpse of undisclosed technology, or something truly not of this world? Share your thoughts in the comments below.